Welcome to the Caribbean Edge. My name is Dawn Wilson, and I am your host this evening. And I want to welcome you to a lovely evening with the authors. Welcome to the Caribbean Edge. My name is. And who are these authors? We have with us author Kim, Lucretia. Hi, Kim. And Kim is all the way in Atlanta, Georgia. How are you, Kim?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Good. So tell us about you, because I can brag about you. You've been on the Caribbean Edge Kids. You're part of our team here. Your son has been on the Caribbean Edge Kids, and you're one of our favorite authors. Oh. And you're married to a Jamaican. What else we want the world to know about you?
Well, I'm a children's book author. I write picture books. I love children, and it's something that I started doing when I volunteered. I work with children who read below grade level, and I went there to help them and inspire them. And in return, they inspired me and gave me the courage to step out and start writing and publishing full time.
So thank you for that. And we're certainly going to dive into a lot of that, as well as what motivates you all to do what you do, because it's so important for the rest of the world to know. And as you know, we are influencing a lot of young minds on T.C.E. Kids as well. And we've had children on the show say, oh, I want to be an author. Because it's such your time is more valuable than anything else. And you also willingly join us on the show and speak to our kids and motivate and inspire them beyond anything you can even imagine. So thank you. And I'm going to switch over to Miss Cahtryn O'Sullivan. Hi, Cahtryn.
Hi, evening, Dawn. Evening, everyone.
Hi. Good evening. So tell us about you.
Hi, I work in early childhood education in different ways. And I also write children's books. Most of my children's books, actually all, are either associated with a curriculum or are written for a curriculum, or we write them and are publishing them for free dissemination, which is new with a foundation called Do Good Jamaica.
Thank you. And you recently were on the Caribbean Edge Kids, and you actually shared with the viewers, I can't go to school, but I can do lots of things. So tell us about that. And if you haven't seen that episode and you're watching, you got to go on YouTube and check out these authors and when they were on the show.
That was the first book we did with Do Good Jamaica. The illustrator is Rachel Moss. And it's supporting children to understand why school was closed, why school has been closed during COVID-19. And that's a book you can access for free. And we're about to disseminate another one about feelings.
Thank you so much for that. And tell us about you as a person. What do you do for fun?
You know, you asked me that on the kids show as well, and I didn't have a good enough answer. And I was supposed to take these weeks and find a good answer. I'm still working on it. I'm still working on that answer, a good enough one. I like to do lots of things I'm not good at, like dancing and singing, you know, which is also why you stay in early childhood, because young children just don't know that. So they let you dance and sing as much as you want.
So Cahtryn, I'm going to challenge you to video it and send it to us so we can,
like children's books, some things, you know, you just have to imagine for yourself. So I'm just going to leave you to imagine that.
Well, thank you. We're so glad you're here with us and that you're having fun. You sound like someone that's having fun that doesn't even know you're having fun, because you have fun with whatever you do. So you can't define it, right?
Maybe that's.
Okay. And no stranger to T.C.E. is Miss Kellie Magnus. Hi, Kellie.
Hi, Dawn. How are you?
I'm doing so fabulous. Thank you for joining us again. I love your bookshelf.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having me. I feel like I'm at some kind of reunion. This is definitely my tribe.
Well, we're glad to have you. So tell us about you, Kellie, for people that may be seeing you for the first time.
I write for children. I run a program here in Jamaica for children, and youth, so I haven't really been able to write as much as I would like to. But I have books that are in the school system here, books for children with special needs, books for just a general interest market, books at the early childhood level, like Cahtryn. And yeah, I work on a lot of different youth development kinds of initiatives.
So you're actually, you write content for children on the Jack Mandora, and you also have your Little Lion series.
Yes.
So tell us about Little Lion series.
Little Lion is a series that I started almost 20 years ago, which is a little scary to me now. I have grown folk talking to me about wanting the books for their kids, which is very, very disconcerting. But I wrote it then because I was really concerned about how little Jamaican content my niece was interacting with, and it really saddens me that almost 20 years later, that's still very much the case. So it's got a little bit better, thanks in no small part to some of the ladies here, but we still don't have as much children's content as a country as rich in culture should. And so that's something that I'm still very much interested in, just creating opportunities for kids to see themselves on the page, their lives reflected, to know that their culture, their experiences, their traditions are valuable and important and as vital as some of the content from other countries that unfortunately they get more opportunities to interact with.
Right, which is one of the reasons that we're so proud to have every single one of you on this show, because it's nice that kids see the reflection of themselves through us and each other, and as kids inspire kids as well. So I know of 3 books in that series, right?
Yes, and I'm really happy to say that after an embarrassingly long period, there will finally be a 4th Little Lion book coming out this year. I took my own sweet time, but yeah, but it will be coming out this year. We'll finally have the 4th title.
Good. And Kellie was on the Caribbean Edge Kids, so you can check it out on our Facebook page or the YouTube page as well. But definitely an inspirational book for our children as well. Thank you, Kellie, for joining us.
Thank you.
And let's talking about culture and storytelling. I mean, Dr. Amina Blackwood Meeks, I don't think there's enough that I could say about how much you warm Auntie Dawn, Auntie Sophie, Auntie Michelle's heart, our children's heart every time you've come on this show. You've joined us for Christmas, our Christmas episode, and the Caribbean Edge itself and the T.C.E. kids. It's always an honor and privilege to have you on the show. And I actually have your book, That's a Good Idea. So I was so proud to order it and receive it. And if you haven't received your copy, you certainly need to get it. So welcome, Dr. Amina. How are you?
Thank you. I'm fine. Hi, everybody. Good to see familiar faces. Notice I'm not saying that word old, and good to meet new faces and make new friends. It is so very important that in our field, we support one another. I have had many reasons to reflect on another generation of creatives, the Louise Bennetts, the Bert Roses, the Rex Nettleford, the Marjorie Wiley, and Easton Lees. And one of the themes that keep coming up is when we were at your house, when I was doing this painting, when you introduced me to this one. And that is perhaps why they were so successful and made such an impact, not only on Jamaican Caribbean cultural life, but on the global stage. And so it's very important for me that you're having this gathering, and this gathering of women. I know the debate about, is there such a thing as a woman writer, or are we just writers? But one of the things that the corona pandemic has taught us is the importance of women, not just in the workplace, but in nurturing the family, everybody, everything, businesses, and so on. And so that's a second reason why this gathering is so important to me. And then I want to support Kellie about where are the books? How do our children access the books? And there is something that we all need to get right. The publishing industry, the Ministry of Education, the writers, we all need to get it right. One of the things that I keep stumbling in is, oh, the market is so small for that kind of publication. And the market is 35 million people in the Caribbean and maybe more. The market is all of us who speak English and French and Spanish. How can that market be small? And how can our children so easily access books from North America in our own local bookstores? And then they have to search around a corner to find content about themselves by people who look like them and share their experiences. So I'm very happy for this forum, so we can discover all the ways that we need to be holding hands so the outcomes that we desire collectively may manifest.
So well said. I just love you, Dr. Amina. And I know that your book is also in Spanish as well, correct?
Yes, my book is in Spanish. It's in Colombia. It's in Costa Rica. It's in Mexico. It's in the storytelling school in Mexico, and not just in individual hands. And it's about to be in Sri Lanka. The illustrator is from Sri Lanka and has never come to the Caribbean. So that he could capture us so beautifully was just awesome for me. And I've been doing interviews and mentioning this. And then I got a call from someone in Sri Lanka to say, could you just send us a little paragraph about how you feel about Jagath so that we can also have the Jamaican connection? And that's so very exciting.
It is, and I'm sure everyone tuning in can see the love and passion on your face and in your voice for what you do. And, you know, something you mentioned is I think we're all changing the world just by being here. COVID-19 has certainly changed the world and given us the platform for us to reach more people and more children, and encouraging authors to start stepping forward and authors to want children to read books that they can relate to and see themselves in. And I promise you, we've gotten so much positive feedback from the kids, even kids coming on, kids authors are out there. And, you know, the little kids are saying, I want to be an author too, because they're on the platform with an author. So trust me, I know we're changing the world, but still a lot more has to be done. And Dr. Amina, I thank you for that. I remember coming back to Jamaica once, and I was looking for Jamaican stuff. Coming from foreign, you want Jamaica stuff. And there was all this foreign stuff. So we want the local stuff.
So the local stuff is good stuff.
The local stuff better than the foreign stuff. So thank you, a pleasure to have you here. And most of the panel tonight is tuning in from Jamaica. So I just want to say thank you to all the Jamaicans, the Yardis. And remember to share this episode. We're proud to be, you know, wherever you are in the world, we're just super proud to be Jamaican. We love our country as well. Hi, Dr. Rebecca Tortello. Welcome again to T.C.E. And she has joined us on T.C.E. Kids as well. How are you this evening?
I'm fine, thanks. Nice to be with you all again. It's nice to be among friends, some of whom I've known for the greater majority of my life. I won't say how many years that is, and in different stages of my life. So it's very happy to be among friends.
And we got to chat a little bit in the room before, and I know you had a really long day. So your time is certainly precious, and we appreciate it. So tell us about the work you're doing and why you do it.
So I currently work with UNICEF Jamaica. So that means I am working with UNICEF as their education specialist. So that means I work mainly with the Ministry of Education, as well as NGOs like the one Kellie runs, Fight for Peace. I have worked with Dr. Amina before in a different phase of my life, and Cahtryn and Lisa and Kate and I are parents of children that are friends. And so my work really could be anything from technical advice or assistance around policy to drafting proposals for interventions to evaluating the interventions for potential scale up within the system, within the education system, that is, to proposing new country programs, new policies. It changes day to day, but in terms of my writing, I started writing stories as a little girl. I wrote a story about Lucy the light bulb who lived in the closet, and I don't know what happened to that story. And then I wrote one about a spring that sprung out of a chair and hopped around the place and somehow found his way back to the chair. I don't know what happened to either of those stories. I just thought about them tonight. I haven't thought about them in decades. And then I took a course on writing for children in college, and I've been writing different stories since then, like Kellie and Cahtryn. I've written at the early childhood level, picture books mostly. I've also written a history book called Pieces of the Past, which first ran as a series of articles in the Gleaner. And I just did a podcast on some of those pieces, just like Amina has been doing her podcast with her stories. I have different books. I have a lot of books I would love to publish, but no one really seems to want to publish them, but I keep trying. My most recent publication was early childhood picture book, board book, sorry. So a small board book, which is not usually published locally or not yet. And so I'm hopeful that some of my other stories will make it to that level and get out there and entertain. And I more recently have been inspired by my children and different topics in Jamaica or around the world to write about.
How about The Pig in a Parachute? That's the one you did on T.C.E. Kids, right?
So that's the board book. And that's not a particularly Jamaican story. It was illustrated by a very talented Jamaican illustrator, Michael Robinson, who does the Little Lion books, for example. And Michael captured my vision quite well. And that story came from my son when he was a baby, and he's now 16. But he used to play with the different stuffed animals in his room, and we used to have different names for them. And I created a game where we would do alliteration with the animals. So it would be a purple pig, a lavender lion, a tangerine tiger, or whatever. And I worked that into the story as a way of building vocabulary and making a game out of the vocabulary. And so it's a dreamlike sequence where the animals come to life. And then at the end, the little boy wakes up and you see some of the animals in his room.
Thank you. Well, we had fun. As old as we are, we have fun listening to you guys read these stories, and as well as the kids. Oh my gosh, the kids have been phenomenal that have joined the show, and hopefully all the authors that have joined us are even more motivated when you see how these kids react to you on the show. Just taking the time out for some of our viewers, Joan Virtue Taylor says, great seeing these brilliant ladies in a space they can share their experience. Julianne Lee, welcome. She says, hi, Dawn and guest. And so does Michelle McLean. And Calvin says, awesome platform with created authors, very informative. So thank you for tuning in and for sharing this episode. I am going to switch over to Miss Lisa McLean, who has read for us on this show as well. And we're certainly we love her books because it's about grandpas. That's who inspired her for her books. Hi, Lisa.
I forgot to unmute. I was saying it's great to be back. This is a little different, right, from reading on a Sunday. And it's quite a privilege to be here with all of these ladies. Really quite a phenomenal team that you have assembled here. Yes, my first two published books were early childhood books, early readers about grandparents. Of course, because they're my favorite people in the world, the grandma and grandpa. And like many of the authors on this panel, I'm an early childhood teacher. I'm also a math teacher. I'm very passionate about books. And I wanted to see books that represented our culture And even more so, not just books that represented our culture, but books that also had universal themes so that they would be appreciated worldwide. You know, we talk about family. Family is very important. And so I wanted to create pieces that were timeless, that really spoke to the diversity that we have in the world's culture right now, and for Caribbean kids to see themselves and recognize, you know, their family traditions and histories.
And you're also working on a fictional series, right?
I'm pretty excited about it. It's for a slightly older age group. It's my Little Ray series, and it's about a little boy, Little Ray, and of course his friends. And of course it explores all of those issues that come up when you are in prep or primary school, as we call it on our end, you know, whether it's bullying, whether it's sharing, whether it's, you know, being a trusting friend, how to handle conflict. And of course, because math is my absolute and utter passion as a teacher, I had to sneak a little bit of that in there because my Little Ray character loves math and is passionate about football. So a little something for everyone, you know. So I'm excited. That's due out this summer, keeping my fingers crossed. It will make its debut in about June, July.
And T.C.E. will certainly keep it updated.
Yes, absolutely. I'll have to share it on your program for sure.
Absolutely. Always welcome. And we have a first timer. I think she's our very only first timer to T.C.E., but nonetheless, Cahtryn, we're putting you on the spot here. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank you.
And I happen to have, with a grateful heart,
I have them too, just in case. Have my
Liar, liar, pants on fire. And which is really something we say a lot when we were growing up, right? Liar, liar, pants on fire, and practice what you preach. So tell us about you and what inspires you.
Well, first, let me say that I don't think I'm worthy to be here because all these ladies seem to have background of, you know, working with kids and, you know, multiple books being published and all that. My story is literally, I got a message that was weighing very heavily on my heart. I am a mother of 2 boys. These books came out, I think, in 2017. So they were, what, 4 years younger. But it started to bother me when I was going out. You know, you go and adults are having arguments in front of kids and, you know, music playing with bad words and, you know, kids are around and no one's held accountable. So when I was putting these books together, I had the 3 stories, as in the stories just literally came to me overnight. I wrote them down the next day and I said, you know what, I'm going to try and make this a book. So it's like the stars aligned and I met 2 people, who is my editor, who was also somebody that I had dealt with previously in business. I just called her to say, hey, you know, I want to write this book. Do you have any advice for me? She had done a lot of, you know, what did Rebecca call it? Like picture books on Amazon. And she said, well, sure, I'll do it for you. Met an illustrator, Crystal Ball. I don't know if anybody's familiar with her. She's a very good artist, up and coming artist. And she also just fell right in line and said, I'd love to do this. But the purpose of my books was really to publish them and get them out for free, which again, we all know the troubles in terms of publishing books in this country, in terms of getting a good price. I went to many foundations to see if they would publish them and distribute them for me. It didn't happen. So currently they're on Amazon and they're actually bought mostly by the Jamaicans overseas. So they have done very well. And was it last year, I was contacted by a British, and what is it, British, who is a British man who is an actor, and he's married to a Jamaican. He accessed my books on Book Fusion and asked if he could do some readings with it. So he has a little show as well. So somehow, you know, the things that you do get noticed when they're supposed to get noticed. I don't know what the future holds for it. And I don't think that I am an author like the rest of you, because I have tried to write books after this and it's just like blank, completely blank. So I'll say that these are my babies. That's the message that I was supposed to bring across. And probably that's it for me.
And I'm sure someone on this panel, or maybe multiple people, have some thoughts to give you on whether you're deserving to be on this panel or not. But everything you've just said makes you more than deserving to be on this panel.
Well, thank you. But, yeah, but I call me the one-time author. That's what you can call me.
Probably not. I mean, we're all inspired by different things at different times in our lives.
Yeah.
And so I'm sure, and I wanted to ask some of the authors as well, you know, do you have those blocks where you just want to write and you can't write? And anyone else stumble with that? Or
Little Lion has been away for a while.
It's been 13 years since the last Little Lion book, and I have lied to a decade of children and told them the next one is coming this year. I remember I was at the library at Tom Redcombe, the Kingston and St. Andrew Parish Library, and this mother asked me when the next Little Lion is coming out, and I said, you know, definitely this year. And little boy just looked at me and said, "You said that last year," with such scorn. So yeah, I've lied to children. My therapist would have to tell you the amount of work I've done to just get the new one out, but it wouldn't write. And like Cahtryn, Little Lion came to me and demanded to be written, and then, you know, stalked off in a funk, and 13 years later has come back. So you write when you write. Did you write something? You're a writer.
Dr. Amina, I think you wanted to say something too.
That is so interesting. I agree with Kelly. Once you write, you're a writer. And then I'm trying not to allow my other side to get out. But if we go down to the Institute of Jamaica, for example, we will see the names of people on various walls with their gold, silver, or bronze. And it was a one-time thing, but they were recognized for that one-time thing. I know there are authors, their names will not come to me now, that we revere, but they wrote one book and that's it. The thing is, we don't force it. It will come when it comes. Is this going to be a seminar? No, it's not going to be a seminar. The fact is, you have written and you have been published and you are an author. And if you never write another line, it doesn't disqualify you from being, not having been, but being an author, and an author worth celebrating. It's important for me to note how many of us so far have said we were inspired to write by a little one, a niece, or a nephew, or a child. And for me, one of the greatest inspirations is that child within. Adulting is not a good thing because we believe we have to behave a certain way. And that certain way separates us from the, I wonder why, what? And all the questions we used to ask, which we still ask, they're still inside of us. And other children who are not the age of these children have those questions as well. And so as long as we stay connected to the child inside, there will always be something to write. The challenge, Cahtryn, is when you're a mother and you work and you're coping with COVID-19, where does the time come from? That is the challenge that I think all of us face.
No, you're very right. I think you have to be in somewhat have a clear head for things to flow. you know? So, I mean, I have no regrets. I'm glad that I did it. You know, and I guess I would have to have that inspiration again come to me, clear as day. That was what it was. It was clear what message it was I was to write and who I was to write it to, you know?
Can I ask?
But a good experience overall. It was fun to do.
And it happens, I believe. It happens to all of us. I truly believe we live our life in seasons. We have different seasons. Like there's a season where you create. There's a season, I know for myself, where I'm inspired. So I published 5 books, and during that time, it was a season of creation for me, that I was inspired. And then that was it. And so I just promoted the books that I did write. And then now, let's see, the last book I wrote was probably 6 or 7 years ago, but now I'm in that season again where I am just inspired, and I just started pumping it out. I didn't know where it came from, but I do believe that you shouldn't force it, and you should just let it flow organically. So you are an author.
Well, thank you. And I agree.
1 or 10 books.
But I wanted to ask too, I think part of the demotivating part is, and again, I guess everybody in Jamaica can speak to this, it's when you have a book, what happens to it? You know, the publishing is hard in Jamaica, you know, and like you said, we have all these books that we've written together, and we can't get them out there for people to purchase. So that to me is almost a big deterrent as well.
You know, I just want to add as well, just, yes, I completely appreciate that publishing is difficult. And that's why I went the route of self-publishing, because it would give me a little bit more autonomy over how to publish, when to publish, just getting it done. But I'd also want to throw into the mix as well, based on the previous. And so, because that motivation to write comes from so many places, whether it's a place of wanting to enrich what currently exists in the marketplace, whether it's from a space of wanting to document, right, which is typically where memoirs come from, or like Rebecca's book, Pieces of the Past, documenting the stories of other peoples and countries and their experiences. I think when you consider that writing serves a purpose and serves many different purposes, then it allows you to be a little bit more patient with the process of producing literature. I mean, for me, I'm writing, you know, the grandma book really was birthed 10 years ago out of a program I was, a course I was taking at U of T. And it wasn't published until 10 years after the fact, because I was parenting and focusing on my son and getting him through to the, you know, the end of high school and getting ready for university. And now I'm working on a piece, my series, that's coming from a space of my experience in education and watching kids grapple with math and learn how to push through and to be resilient. And again, there are years between that process. And then now with COVID, you know, my latest fascination is not even children's books. It's really wanting to document the stories of our grandparents and their experiences in Jamaica, and looking at the history and looking at why, you know, treasuring these stories and recording them before we lose another generation of persons and we don't have stories. And so I think we have to remember that writing is an art and a creative process in and of its own right, even though it is an industry and it's a business, and we definitely want it to be profitable and we want to make money, but there's a voice in it, right, in what we're sharing. And I think once we're authentic and true to that voice, then I don't think we have to worry about the timing and how much we produce and when we produce.
Thank you for that, Lisa. Okay. We're all sharing and learning from each other and inspiring. I think everyone's going to start writing shortly after this program. And I'm certainly not published, but I can tell you from the heart, I decided to document my journey. And there are times people say, when are you going to document it? We want to buy the book because I've been outspoken about certain things. And I tell you, one night I was just in bed and everything was calm and everything just flowed. It's like I just grabbed the computer and started writing, and tears came, everything came. I was so passionate about it. And then after that, that was it. I haven't finished. So even for people that have not published, you have a story, a journey you want to share or document. And there are times you just not flowing, so you don't force it. So hopefully, Cahtryn, you realize how important you are and significant to the panel and to the children and the people around the world. So thank you. And Miss Hana, so patiently waiting. How are you this evening?
Hello, everyone. I am very well, thank you. I am so honored and blessed to be here with everyone this evening. I am really, really excited to learn from each one of you and to share what I have to share as well. I love what Dr. Meeks talked about, having the community, because the social aspect of the creative journey is very important to me. And so having this platform is something that I really appreciate. On Caribbean Edge Kids, I was invited and I was able to read. And I really enjoyed the energy. I myself am not from Jamaica, although people all the time, they hear me speak and they're like, are you from Jamaica? And I say, no, I'm not. I am from Africa. And then they're like, oh, what part? And then I tell them, and they're like, but you sound like you could be from Jamaica. So I'm from Kenya, born and raised. I'm actually half Kenyan, half Tanzanian, so I'm East African. And I very much resonated with what Dr. Meeks talked about, because I grew up in an art gallery, in a creative arts setting where my parents were trailblazers. In 1963, they founded the first indigenous East African art gallery. And so during a time when countries were coming through, they were post-colonial because it was after independence. So we were colonized by the British, much like Jamaica was. And my parents decided to go the route of arts and self-expression and abandoned what other people were doing, which is politics or science and all of that. So I grew up in that environment. As a little girl, I wrote my first story entitled Mr. Pig. My mom kept that story and reminded me that, Hana, you know, you are a writer. But as an immigrant living in America, I know that we all go through our tests of time, life's wear and tear, where we sometimes forget who we are. And so we don't pursue God-given calling. I am passionate about words. I love writing stories. And so I wrote a story called The Shady Taxi Driver. And just, you know, tapping into what Dr. Meeks said again, I mean, everyone has said so many things that resonate with me. The inner child. I wrote that story because I had lived in this country 20 years without having traveled back home to Kenya. I was looking at my country with my child's eyes, and I was observing a taxi driver doing shady things. And so I wrote that story. It was published in South Africa in an anthology. And in terms of children's books, I'm working on that. Okay, I have not written a children's book yet. And I was telling my friend Kim, I was like, but I haven't written a children's book. I love children. What I do is I volunteer to read to them. We have a program called the Tutor Mate program with my firm. I work in a law firm. And what this program does, we were reading pre-COVID to kids who are in the, what do they call that pipeline? Prison pipeline. I forget the exact term, the name of it, but it's children who live in food deserts who don't really have access to books. And so if they don't, they start reading at a lower grade level than they're supposed to. And so there's an organization called TutorMate that recruits volunteers to read to kids, and it has shown that reading to children 30 minutes a week, just at a minimum, helps them improve their grade so that by third grade, they're not dropping out of school and they're not feeding the prison pipeline here in Atlanta. So for 3 years pre-COVID, I was running that and getting volunteers at work to do this reading. And the superintendent of the Atlanta Public Schools, I'm with her, and it's just very rewarding work. So all of you who are doing that kind of work in Jamaica, it kind of really makes me feel like, wow, there are these programs that are really, really important that need to continue. And so what you are doing here on the Caribbean Edge also, I just really, really appreciate, and hats off, and please continue. But also please continue having gatherings with all of these amazing authors, because it's really, really important. Kellie and your work and all the books that you have written. And I was really impressed. I walked into Barnes and Noble a couple of weeks ago when they started opening up, and I went into the children's book section. That was when I was getting ready to come and read here, because I wanted to get a book that would, you know, kids could see themselves in. And my jaw was on the floor when I walked into that kids section, but in a good way. There was so many more books with kids that look like us, okay? I was like, are you serious? It was like almost everywhere on every shelf. So if that could happen in Jamaica as well, and I'm really curious to learn more about the publishing there, and you know, if you can self-publish. But it's true, even now in 2021, you know, it should be that, you know, kids can look around and pick up a book that and be able to relate to them. So I'm wondering now, with the internet and the rise of the internet and people reading online, maybe having more, you know, books online for kids, because kids are really using the laptops and all of that online as well. So thank you for that. And I appreciate being here. And yes.
Thank you so much for that, Hannah. We are so glad that you joined us on the Caribbean Edge Kids and read for our children as well. And I think Rebecca wants to chime in. Hi, Rebecca.
Hi, Dawn. I just wanted to add for those listening that the Jamaica Library Services site has a link to a lot of Jamaican authors and illustrators' work. Kellie's is on there, mine is on there. Cahtryn's, I think, might also be on there. It's called, the website is www.jls for Jamaica Library Service.gov.jm, Jamaica JM, /bookstart-JA. So the Bookstart program takes all of the material from early childhood, all of the Ministry of Education's locally produced material from early childhood up to about grade 9. So it has a series of books called Literacy 1, 2, 3. And some of the books, when you click on them and you download, it's a data-free site, I believe. You download the story and there's audio of some of the stories. So as the stories are read, the words light up. Not all of them are audioed, but some of them are. So that's it's like being able to bring a library in and into your home on your device. Many of those books, that's through a partnership with Book Fusion, which you heard Kate mention a little while ago as well. And it also has videos of different people sharing books as well, reading aloud books from their own libraries. So it would bring a library of Caribbean content into your home.
Good. Thank you so much for sharing that. And we'll certainly post it in the chat as well. Dr. Amina, can you share with us about Reading Across Jamaica?
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much. There are so many things going on in my head about all the projects that we could undertake. I'm going to share about Read Across Jamaica, but let me just say this, that in the transition from that world to this world and the world after COVID, one of the things that has become painfully obvious and that we should be aware of is how many children do not have access to a device such as this, do not have access to even a telephone on which they can download something. And therefore, how do we reach them? Because if we do not figure out how to reach them, the gap that prevents the transformation that some of us, I think all of us, would like to see to a more just and equitable society is only going to widen. We can only walk as fast as the slowest person, or otherwise we're going to have to stop to wait. And because we don't want to stop to wait and interrupt the forward march of all of us, then we have to find a way not to leave our children behind. And so that reference by Rebecca to the Jamaica Library Service is very, very important. My storytelling festival and Nancy Soundsplash, which happens in November, the Jamaica Library Service is our primary corroborator. The festival is held in collaboration with them. And initially, we would, there is one morning in the festival called Anansi Goes to the Library, where simultaneously between 9 and 11 on that morning, our storytellers are in all of the parish branches of the library. That means we only have 28 tellers. Do the maths, it's 14. And then one post-festival assessment, the library said no, but there are 831 because we forget mobile libraries and we forget community libraries and we forget networks of libraries. Mm-hmm. And so it's very, very important that we ensure that those libraries are resourced with the kind of content we have been talking about. I don't know how Fight for Peace and Book Fusion and all of those other foundations would help that to happen. But wouldn't it be wonderful if at the end of this show, somebody says 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 8 authors times 831. We are going to ensure that these 8 books are in every single branch of the library. The Jamaica Library Service, that is. And then there are 1,200 public schools, and each of them has a library. So those are some of the ways that we should be strategizing and sending it out to the universe and all the international agencies, particularly those of them concerned with children, that this is one way we can ensure that no child is left behind. One of the theorists that we study as teachers is Bandura. And Bandura said, you can give me 6 children from any walk of life, any social, any economic background, and I will make of them what I will by the nature of the instruction I give to them. And from that, I learned that we learn to be before we learn to be educated. We learn to be proud. We learn to be empathetic. We learn to be kind. We learn to be respectful to those people who are older than us. And I'm hearing all of those themes in the concerns of this gathering. And we know that in the Japanese school system, the first 3 or 4 years, they're not learning no book. They're learning how to be human beings. And so that's a powerful and compelling reason why somebody should write a check now, this minute, so that we can have our books in the libraries. The Jamaica Library Service is now at the beginning stages of its annual reading competition for all age groups. Wouldn't it be wonderful if these 8 books could be part of that reading competition? Or if we could be facilitated to donate our books as prizes for the winners of that competition. So we know that it is getting to everybody so that no child is left behind. In the end, no child being left behind is a personal action, and each of us can take an action. So I wanted to say that Read Across Jamaica Day is a wonderful, wonderful activity. The first week of May in Jamaica is Education Week. And the Tuesday of that week is Read Across Jamaica Day. And pre-COVID, authors, readers, storytellers, politicians, pastors would be attached to various schools and would go into those schools to read. This year, Read Across Jamaica Day happened online. So the Ministry of Education had a set of activities, and the Jamaica Teachers Association had another set of activities. And I was honored to have my book, That's a Good Idea, as the featured book for the Jamaica Teachers Association Read Across Jamaica Day. Yes, there is also a very important lesson in this, that no matter what happens, we now have this platform that we can use. There are so many channels which are now open to us in this, so that we can leap forward to do the things that need to be done to bring a little bit of heaven down here.
Thank you, Dr. Amina. I do want to share with you, we have two kids. Well, one of them was actually on T.C.E. kids, and our age range is typically 5 to 15 years old. We made the exception and had this little 4-year-old girl from Jamaica read. She was just brilliant, and she sings, and just that personality that you cannot ignore. And she sang, "Charmy Aki, go all instead market," and she read for us, Olivia Grace, 4 years old. So her mom sent me a video of her reading for Read Across Jamaica, and another video of her brother. And you must check it out on YouTube. I just think she's so inspirational, and I shared it with the authors. And what's so innocent and heartfelt with these kids is they read, she's reading, and she's reading so brilliantly, and she says, "Mommy, the page is torn." And her mom said, "It's okay." And she said, "Yeah, it's okay." And she just kept reading her book. I mean, you just gotta love kids. You just gotta write for them. So I so appreciate each and every one of you for what you do and the passion that you're doing it with. Because, you know, it may be little steps right now, you know, the challenges with publishing books and everything else, the roadblocks that may come up. But know that even if you wrote 1 book, 2 books, 5 books, it's so significant to our children out there. And me, a big kid in me, is appreciating it because I get to share your work and you with the kids and the rest of the world. So you're making history. Because kids will always have this to go back with. Technologies here. I do want to ask you though, what advice would you give to children that are going to watch this show or want to be authors? And sometimes as adults, we know the fears that stop us from pursuing our dreams. So since we're all adults now, with authors at least published something, what advice would you give to our little ones to encourage them not to let fear drive them? So let's go with Rebecca.
Okay, so, well, I would say that you never want to give in to any fear. You want to try to move through and beyond it. So if you want to be an author and you have stories inside of your mind, a good way is just to start writing them down or typing them if you have the facility to type. Type them and understand that it's a process. So when you write a story the first time, it may not be the exact way you want it to be, and you come back a day later and read it, you might change it. It's always good also to test your stories out on the audience that you're intending it for. So you read it to your friends, you ask your friends to read it and give you feedback. Kellie, Cahtryn have read many of my stories multiple times and given me feedback multiple times. And so you have to learn to be open to that feedback constructively. And so you kind of have to be willing to put yourself out there, but the rewards that you get when your story is finished and you feel like it's the best job that you could have done, and it really says what you were trying to say, and that someone reads it and enjoys it or is inspired to go and read some more or to write some more, you know, it's a priceless feeling. Not to say that I wouldn't like the books to sell more, like what Dr. Amina was saying. I definitely agree with that. And also to point out that we also have about 2,000 early childhood institutions. So when you add that up, it's about 3,200 institutions. So, and all could use more books.
Thank you. Thank you. Some great advice there for young authors, and also some authors that may not be so young anymore. You never know. You may want to start now. How about you, Kellie? What advice would you give to our youth?
I would say just, you know, hang on to that impulse, that creative impulse, and it's something that you have to protect. Sometimes you have to protect it from your parents who want to focus you on more practical things. Sometimes you have to protect it even from our school system, but you have to hang on to that creative impulse. The thing that COVID has taught me is that I am never going to be happy unless I'm creating. And I've tried to be fulfilled by doing all kinds of other deeply meaningful things, but unless I am paying attention to and making space for that creative impulse, I'm never truly happy. And it took a long time for me to figure that out. And I look at some of the younger children in my family who are naturally very creative, and I try to reflect that to them, just try to encourage them. Yes, you have to pay attention to school and you have to try to think about what you want to be in life, but try to hang on to that creative impulse and honor it and make space for it, because I truly think it is critical to a sense of self and a sense of fulfillment.
Thank you. And I'm hoping parents out there are really listening to that, because we tried to get our kids to go down one road and not support them in their journey and their creative side. And so it's so important. And I've learned that as a mom too, even being Jamaican and raising a child in America, to let go some of what I learned as a child and allow my children to bloom as well and pursue their dreams. So we have to. It's a different world, different time, different culture for us all. How about you, Kim? What advice would you give to our young writers?
I agree with the others. You have to be true to what you've been called to do. We all have a path and a purpose, I believe. And I'm a creative. I've always been creative. And even if you're fearful, you just have to do it afraid. You have to pursue what's in your heart and what's in your head. And when you do that, you won't regret it. You will not regret it. I'm so happy that I did what I did a long time ago. I quit my job and I followed my heart, and I knew this is what God put me here to do. And when you do that, when you follow your purpose, you always win. You know.
Thank you. And having a good support system probably allowed you to quit that job too. So,
well, in the beginning, no, because my story is a little different. I don't advise anybody else to do it. But just like Kellie was saying, I was a creative. I mean, I have a MBA and all of that, but I was miserable because that's what I was not created to do. And in the beginning, my husband wasn't supportive, but I decided that I had to show up as the person who God created me to be. You only have one life. And I went into work one day and I decided that day that I wasn't coming back. I quit and left and went home and told my husband, I'm not going back. And so, yeah, it's a long story, but in the beginning, I did not, but I was determined that I had to be true. We all have to be true to who we were created to be. So he's supportive now, but it didn't start like that. And I decided that, no, this is my life and we are responsible for our lives. And we have to, I was not going to continue to be miserable. And what I went to school for was what I did not want. I went to school based on what other people said that I should do. And I got tired of living the life that other people thought that I should live. So, yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing that, Kim. I'm sure so many women and men can relate to that. So absolutely important. Thank you. How about you, Lisa? Any advice you'd give to our young youth?
Oh, absolutely. So, having gotten over the fear of writing and taken all the wonderful advice that we've heard, you have to remember that you no longer have to go the route of traditional publisher anymore. So if you have a book, if you've written it, if you've got it illustrated, it's been edited, because you it and let you know if there's anything that you need to tweak, self-publish, you know, and that's the easiest route for children to take. And that's where parents can actually step in and be really supportive. And it's a wonderful learning experience. So I know there's always that big concern, especially when you're in those upper primary years where, you know, PEC is the big thing in Jamaica or in other school systems. I know they have their own standardized tests that children will be taking, but, you know, actually writing a book is a really good way of putting together what you're studying in school. So it's a really good opportunity to reinforce general writing skills. That's essential for many of these exams that our kids are taking. Applying language structure, punctuation, etc. So actually it reinforces what they're doing in school. So for parents who are concerned, no, this is actually a really good way to get to use and to reinforce the skill sets that they are covering in school. But definitely self-publish, kids. If you have a book and you've written it and you want to get it out to the world, there are a number of platforms that you can explore that allow you to publish your book yourself.
Good. Thank you so much, Lisa. We're so happy you joined us. And Dr. Amina?
Yes, I raised my hand to say three things. But before that, let me just absolutely support Rebecca. This fear of you're going to be a writer is ours. It's not theirs. And that fear is born of how we know that the creatives have been treated in societies such as ours. I love to say that Arnold Schwarzenegger got paid $38 million for saying 38 words in The Terminator. And if we could encourage a child that you could get $38 million for writing 38 words, we would say, go ahead and write. There'd be no fear. There'd be no fear. So that fear is ours. And we should guard against passing it on to our children. So thank you very much, Rebecca, for saying that. And then after that, the three things I wanted to share are this. One, 2021 is the international year, as declared by the United Nations, the international year for the creative economy for sustainability. They know something that we don't know. And our children are there at the beginning of this something. And we should encourage them, if that is what they want to do, to pursue it. We've been talking about the fact that we are now in the knowledge era and the knowledge economy. What does that mean? And how does that translate for the creative writers? I had a talk, I had the honor of being able to chat with our newly minted poet laureate, Miss Olive Senior, recently. And she said that since she was a child, she wanted to write, but she was born and raised in Trelawney. What's that? What's a writer? She didn't know anybody who was a writer. And so it didn't seem like something feasible as her young mind understood it then. But our children now know writers. They know that we are real. They know that some of us succeed only because the books are out. They know that some of us succeed because we in the bestseller of whatever. So there are different levels of success. But guess what? Sometimes there are doctors who are unemployed or not earning enough, or pilots who are grounded. So the financial aspect of success is something that we need them to know, that success is not always mathematically calculated, but it can be calculated in terms of what Kim said, showing up as your most authentic self. And then the third thing I want to say is something I've been trying to wrap my head around since I first encountered it, I think in 1993, in a National Geographic that had a little article on Jamaica. But in that article, it said, not since Crete as an island nation has this impact on civilization? That's deep. And they're not talking about the economic impact that we've had on civilization. But what if we could translate that cultural impact into economic development? And I think all our children who are creatives, whether they dance or they sing or they write or they're thinking about becoming writers, all our children have the possibility and have the potential for recreating Crete and leveraging our creative skills into economic prosperity. And for those reasons, they should be encouraged.
Thank you, Dr. Amina. Always has the right words of encouragement. I mean, I can't add to it, I can't subtract, but you are so right. I'm a firm believer, no matter what your background is, that you should be able to break certain cycles. And I'm so glad that you powerful women are here to talk about it and to encourage our youth, and that people can look at this show tonight and see themselves in it and be encouraged and inspired. And like you said, Dr. Amina, not just to write books, but to sing, to dance, to do everything your creative genes tell you can do. And make your own journey. And I wish I had you ladies when I was younger to give me all the advice that I'm hearing tonight. But I'm still young, so I'm still taking in your advice.
But we wish we had us as well.
Awesome. But now is the time for us to inspire you. So I just can't thank you enough. Both Auntie Sophie, Auntie Michelle, and I work so hard with T.C.E. kids that we just appreciate you more than words can ever say. I do want to switch over to Miss Anna. What advice would you give authors out there so that they can go past their fears? Yes, you, Anna.
Oh my goodness. Everything has been summarized so well already. There's nothing I can add, honestly. Everything was touched on. It's like we here in the South, we say we don't want to overcook the grits. So we just eat them the way they are.
We're not going to overcook the grits then. How about you, Cahtryn O'Sullivan?
I love it.
I mean, I would say the same. I would echo what everyone has said, but I would also just encourage you to have fun. Stay true to yourself, to what you love to do, to what you love to write, and to stay open to the different ways you can be an author and the different forms it can take. None of my books are actually currently available for purchase. They're with curriculum or they're for free through a foundation so that we can disseminate it to as many children as who want it. And it's just PDF for the COVID book and the other one that's coming out. But other opportunities come from that. From that COVID book, a colleague reached out to me who had published with a publisher and said, oh, maybe you want to talk to a publisher. I'm still saving up my money for self-publishing for the children's books I'm creating to publish on my own. But I spoke to a publisher in the States about, I thought a children's book, but they wanted a grown-up book. So I took the risk, and now I'm going to publish a book for teachers and parents next year with Griffin House. You know, so just see what happens next. Stay open to the possibilities, but stay true to yourself and know that it can come in different forms, and you're still an author in all of those many ways. You know, stay true to your audience and to how you want to get your message across, and it can take lots of different forms.
Lots of great advice. Congratulations to you all. You all have motivated me and everyone watching, sharing this. I have Errol tuning in for Turks and Caicos. He says, great show as well. Is there anything that anyone wants to add to this tonight before we wrap up on this hour show? Okay, so it looks like we discussed everything. The show could go on forever and talk to you powerful women. Once again, we certainly can't thank you enough for everything that you do, especially for our children. So thank you so much for joining the Caribbean Edge tonight. And one love, walk good. Have an amazing week, everyone. Bye.
Thank you, Dawn, and thank you to Michelle. Thank you for creating the opportunity.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks for
Awesome.
that.
Bye.
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 Bye.